Welcome everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm excited to kick off this presentation on understanding the essential elements that transform a simple agreement into a legally binding promise. The title of our session is The Pillars of Promise, Ensuring Contract Validity. Over the next few slides, we'll explore what makes a contract legally enforceable, the key elements involved, and how to ensure your agreements stand on solid ground. Let's get started. Let's talk about the legal framework that governs contracts. Primarily, it's based on common law principles, which come from judicial decisions over time, and the Uniform Commercial Code, or UCC, which specifically addresses sales transactions. These sources provide the rules and standards we rely on to interpret and enforce agreements. At its core, a contract is essentially a promise that the law will enforce. This means that when parties enter into a contract, they are creating legal obligations, things they are legally required to do or refrain from doing. It's this enforceability that makes contracts so powerful and vital in business. Now, when we say a binding promise, we're highlighting that a contract isn't just a casual agreement, it's a serious commitment backed by law. Once a contract is formed, both parties are legally bound to fulfill their promises. So, what exactly is a contract? It's fundamentally the foundation of any agreement. It formalizes the understanding between parties and provides certainty. This foundation is essential because it helps ensure that everyone knows their rights and responsibilities, which ultimately supports smooth and fair transactions. Connecting this to our overall theme, understanding the legal basis of contracts helps us recognize how essential they are for trustworthy business relationships and economic stability. It's the legal backbone that makes commercial exchanges reliable and predictable. Contracts provide a solid framework for enforceable agreements, meaning that if one party doesn't follow through on their promises, the other party can seek legal remedies. This kind of protection is essential because it encourages people and businesses to engage in transactions with confidence. When parties know their commitments are legally backed, they're more likely to do business, which in turn supports economic growth. Legal frameworks like these make business dealings more predictable. By clearly defining each party's rights and obligations, contracts reduce uncertainty and help build trust in commercial relationships. When everyone understands what's expected, it's easier to work together smoothly. Ultimately, the purpose of a contract is to create predictability and security. It's about providing a reliable structure that promotes fair dealings and stability in business. This predictability not only benefits individual transactions, but also underpins a healthy, thriving economy. Now, let's talk about the 4 essential elements that make a contract enforceable. First, the parties involved must be adults of sound mind and have the legal capacity to contract. This means they need to understand what they're agreeing to and be legally able to do so. Next, the contract must be for a lawful purpose. It can't be for anything against public policy or illegal, otherwise, it won't hold up in court. Third, there needs to be consideration. This is the bargained-for exchange where each party gives something of value, whether it's money, services, or goods. It shows that both sides are genuinely involved in the agreement. Finally, there must be a clear offer and acceptance. This demonstrates mutual assent, meaning both parties agree to the terms and understand each other's intentions. Putting it all together, these 4 components, capacity, legality, consideration, and agreement, are the foundation of any valid and enforceable contract. They ensure that the agreement is fair, clear, and legally binding, which ties into our overall theme of understanding how contracts function in the legal landscape. Let's take a closer look at this idea of agreement in contract law, often called a meeting of the minds. This concept is absolutely essential when it comes to forming a valid contract. It means that both parties genuinely understand and agree on the terms of the deal. When there's mutual understanding or mutual assent, it indicates that both sides are on the same page and intend to be bound by the agreement. Now, one key aspect of this is unconditional agreement to the offer's terms. That means each party accepts the offer fully and without any conditions or modifications. This clear acceptance shows that both parties agree on the same terms and are committed to moving forward. Let's talk about acceptance for a moment. Acceptance is essentially a proposal with clear terms. It's what one party promises to do or provide. When acceptance occurs, it indicates that the party agrees to the specific details laid out in the offer. And the offer itself is a proposal that sets out those terms, what one party is promising to do or provide. It's the starting point for a potential agreement, and the clarity of this proposal is crucial for establishing a mutual understanding. So, in summary, for a contract to be valid, there must be an agreement, a real meeting of the minds, where both parties understand and accept the same terms fully. This mutual understanding forms the foundation of enforceable contracts and helps ensure everyone is on the same page from the start. So, when we talk about consideration, we're really focusing on what each party is promising or giving up in a bargain. It can be a promise to do something, like committing to perform a service, or it might be an act of actually doing something for the other person. Sometimes, it's about refraining from doing something. That's called forbearance. Now, the key idea here is that both parties must give something of value. This isn't just about one side making a gift. It's about exchanging elements that have worth. And this value can take three main forms. Understanding what must be exchanged helps us see why contracts are valid and enforceable. It's the core of the bargain, what makes an agreement more than just a casual promise. So, when we think about consideration, we're really talking about the value exchanged, the bargaining chip, if you will, that gives the contract its legitimacy. It's what makes the deal fair and binding, and it's a fundamental part of contract law. Let's talk about legality and capacity in contract law. For a party to be bound by a contract, they need to have the legal ability to enter into one. That generally means they must be an adult and of sound mind. So, minors, individuals who are mentally incapacitated, or those under certain legal disabilities don't have full capacity to contract. Now, moving on to the purpose of the contract itself. It must be legal and not go against public policy. Courts won't enforce agreements if they involve illegal activities or if they could harm society's interests in any way. In summary, when we're discussing the boundaries of enforceability, both legality and capacity are key. Without these, a contract simply isn't valid or enforceable. This ties into the overall theme of understanding what makes an agreement legally binding and how legal standards protect everyone involved. Let's start by looking at the different types of legal effects a contract can have. When we say a contract is void, it means it has no legal effect at all. It's as if it never existed. On the other hand, a voidable contract is one where one party has the option to cancel or enforce it, usually due to some defect or issue at the time of formation. Then we have unenforceable contracts, which are valid agreements but can't be enforced by law, often because of technical issues like statute of limitations or lack of proper form. Of course, a valid contract is one that is fully enforceable and meets all legal requirements, making it binding for both parties. Now, moving to legal standing, which refers to the basis on which a contract is recognized by the law. Sometimes, terms are not expressly written, but are implied from the conduct of the parties. This is called implied terms. These are inferred based on actions, behaviors, or circumstances that suggest what the parties intended. Conversely, express terms are clearly stated, either spoken or written, so there's no ambiguity about their meaning. Understanding the difference between express and implied terms is crucial because it affects how we interpret and enforce contracts. Next, let's consider the types of promises involved: unilateral and bilateral contracts. A unilateral contract involves one promise that becomes binding when the other party performs, that is, acceptance through performance. For example, I promise to pay you $100 if you find my lost pet. Your performance of finding the pet completes the contract. In contrast, bilateral contracts involve a mutual exchange of promises. Both parties commit to doing something, like buying or selling a house. This exchange of promises creates a more reciprocal relationship. Recognizing these distinctions helps us understand the nuances of contract law and how different agreements function in the real world. This is all part of understanding the broader theme of contract formation and enforceability, which is fundamental to legal transactions and business agreements. Let's talk about contracts that simply can't be enforced. First, we have void contracts. These are agreements that neither party can really enforce, often because they involve illegal activities or one party lacked proper authority. Essentially, these contracts are treated as if they never existed, so no legal obligations are recognized. Next, there are voidable contracts. Here, one party has the power to choose whether to keep or cancel the agreement. This usually happens when there's a defect like fraud, duress, or if one party lacked capacity at the time of signing. The innocent party has the option to affirm the contract or void it, depending on what they decide is best. Then we have unenforceable contracts. These are valid agreements in terms of intent and legality, but some legal rule, like the statute of frauds, prevents them from being enforced in court. So, while they might be valid on paper, the law won't support their enforcement. Finally, when promises break due to invalidity, the consequences can vary. Essentially, if a contract is invalid, the parties may not have any legal recourse, which underscores the importance of understanding when contracts are enforceable and when they're not. This all ties back to our overall theme of understanding the different levels of contract validity and enforceability in legal agreements. Understanding these essential elements is crucial because they ensure that your promises are not only clear, but also legally sound and enforceable. Whether you're dealing with business agreements or personal commitments, having a solid grasp of contract law helps protect your interests. It also builds trust in your relationships because everyone knows where they stand and what to expect. Valid contracts form the foundation of commerce and personal dealings. They turn simple promises into legally binding obligations that everyone can rely on. When we talk about building trust, a valid contract really is the power behind that trust. It provides certainty and security for all parties involved. So, in essence, understanding these key elements isn't just about legal compliance. It's about fostering honest, reliable relationships, both in business and in life.